We are here talking with Ramey Campbell about his exhibition at the Art Center in Orange, Sea Summit Sky, and his work in landscapes and painting in general. So how about you tell us a little bit about what got you started? What got you into art and interested in painting in particular?
Well, I think as a child, like most kids, they like to draw. You got crayons. You're given paint by numbers, and you kind of get into it that way. I was fortunate that I lived in Alexandria, and so the school system, when it would have a field trip, probably 75% of the time, they would go to the National Gallery. Later, after that experience, I started copying paintings. And that gave me a chance to experience the brush and the nature of paints and so forth. Then I went away to college to study pharmacy. And so when I got out, I just needed something to fill that void of studying all the time. So I started painting. And one thing led to another. I started taking classes, workshops. I took a couple of classes, art classes at Piedmont. And then later, I was fortunate enough to go to Beverly Street Studio School in Stanton. And I studied with Ron Beamer for 6 years.
Are there artists that really inspired you along the way, other than your teachers, who clearly got you going
Absolutely.
On this path?
Absolutely. Definitely, it was the French Impressionists. That was the first. And in particular, it was Monet, Pissarro, and Sisley. Of course, there's a lot of other French Impressionists, but those three, I don't know, I just thought they were just great landscape painters. And I started copying all those paintings. My wife doesn't like to go with me to an art museum because I could be in front of a painting for an hour and a half, with a pencil and paper, trying to understand how it was put together.
So in a way, you never stopped studying how painters paint.
No, I think as an artist, you continue to grow. There's no end to it. I think you'll always be a student. To be able to create, it feels really good when it works. Feels really lousy when it doesn't work. When I'm painting well, boy, it makes me feel really good for the whole day. But if I have a lousy day of painting, I feel pretty lousy the whole day. I mean, I can't wait to get back to the painting to understand what it is about the painting that's not working.
Do you have any advice for somebody who's trying to do this in their work, no matter what level they might be at?
I think you just have to stick with it, and you're not going to have a great painting every time. Put the painting away. When you finish with it, put it away. Don't look at it for several months, and then look at it again. And then you look at it with fresh eyes. If it's not working, try to understand and figure it out. What is it about the painting that's not working? That's almost as much educational value as getting it right the first time.
Obviously, the past 2 years have been very disruptive for all kinds of things, but also artists in their practices in their studios. Can you speak a little bit about how COVID-19 and all of this disruption in the world has changed or not changed your artistic practice?
Well, it really hasn't changed my practice whatsoever. Because art, for the making of art, for me, is solitary. So that I'm by myself anyway really hasn't changed at all. Everyone in my art group, we're all vaccinated and boosted, so we feel free in being around each other. So I think it's important that you have a group that you feel comfortable with.
Could you speak a little bit more about why landscapes in particular draw you?
My professional career as a hospital pharmacist, I would work 12 hours a day. So it takes me an hour to get there and an hour to get back. So it's at least 14 hours during the day where I'm consumed in my work. And I'm in the bottom of the basement of the hospital. There are no windows. And so when I'm not working, I really need to be outside. And so art was the perfect thing, was a perfect match to my professional career. I started off strictly as a plein air painter.
Doing that, you said you were a plein air painter. How has that changed?
When I took lessons at Beverly Street Studio School, during the war months, we would always paint in plein air. But then during the cold winter, we would paint in studio. And I have to say, I really liked it better. It certainly was warmer. I didn't have to fight flies and insects and the heat. And so as time goes on, I'm using exactly the same technique as a plein air painter in studio. It hasn't changed my method at all. I mean, I still have to be outside. I still have to find the motif, and I photograph it in multiple ways. Many times I will take written notes, and I try to break down the scene as I would interpret it in pigment. I mean, as a plein air painter, for me, yeah, I'm painting what I'm seeing, but I'm also painting what I'm feeling also.
Right.
So I thought, if I can do that in plein air, I can certainly do the same thing in the studio. And the idea is perishable. So if I don't, whatever I saw in that picture is gone. So my goal as a painter is try to describe in that painting what I'm seeing and what I'm feeling to the viewer. I can drive 120 miles west and be in the foothills of the Allegheny Mountains. I could go drive 120 miles east and go to the Potomac River and the Chesapeake Bay. So, and I paint everything in between.
That kind of makes me think about the Corolla Dune series, that you have really taken a different approach to the way that you capture that scene and the atmosphere of it very effectively. So if you could speak a little bit more about that series and why you keep painting that scene.
Certainly. For those of you who are familiar with Monet, he did a lot of series of paintings. And I've been doing that for about 30 years. With regards to the dunes in Corolla, that's where I go on vacation. And this one particular cottage that we have every year, when I look out the balcony, that's what I see. And I see it multiple times during the day. Different atmospheric conditions, they're all totally different. And I guess it was probably a challenge for myself.
If you could talk a little bit about how you treat light in your work.
And it's just really a challenge to myself. I believe it's very difficult to get that atmospheric quality into a painting, and I continue to work at it until I achieve it. Sometimes it doesn't happen, but when it does, it feels good.